I think it's a really, really terrible job to be at the top of, a relatively autocratic country. And I don't know why anyone wants it. You have to imagine that anytime anything goes wrong or anytime anyone feels like their life is threatened, like your life might be under threat, right? Because these guys have nothing to lose.
Welcome back to the FT studio for our latest PWM Tea Break episode with our special guest, Alice Wang, fund manager and advisor to family offices. It's great to have you with us again, Alice.
Yeah, great to see you again. I'm having the ginger lemon tea just because I'm a little bit under the weather. And in Chinese culture, we say ginger warms the whole body.
When your friends and relatives are sitting down for their afternoon Chinese tea today in Beijing, Shanghai or Shenzhen, what will be their main areas of concern?
I think relative to the last couple of years, I think people are in better spirits. They seem to be in a more trusting, growing confidence mood.
I mean, certainly when I was there in November, the atmosphere was a very positive one. But obviously there have been developments since then, the energy crisis in the Gulf, and we had an opinion piece from Daniel Casali of Evelyn Partners, and he was talking about the political machinations at the start of the year of the fire horse. 2 military generals sidelined by President Xi, placed under investigation.
I think it's a really, really terrible job to be at the top of, a relatively autocratic country. And I don't know why anyone wants it. You have to imagine that anytime anything goes wrong or anytime anyone feels like their life is threatened, like your life might be under threat, right? Because these guys have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And I think this is not the first, not the last, and just emblematic of that kind of role.
Absolutely. And we had another opinion from Megan Yi at GIB Asset Management, and she was talking about the main driving factors being security, national security in terms of economic policy, and energy security in terms of sensitive technologies. Is that a correct analysis, do you feel?
I actually think that the Chinese secret sauce is insecurity. And I think it's this like tiger mom kind of nature where nobody feels really secure about themselves or their livelihoods at any time. So they're always in fierce competition with each other. And that goes for domestic economy where, margins are so low across all industries because it's just so competitive. And it drives people, entrepreneurs outbound. So in Africa, for example, you're seeing so many more entrepreneurs going to Africa because it's just too competitive in China. So all the dynamics that you're seeing going outbound is actually a result of people feeling really insecure in their country. And the great time that consumers are having in China, benefiting from all these cheap prices and competition amongst the tech giants is really because of the, insecurity that these companies feel to just be completely at it all the time, driving down each other's margins. That's the dynamic that is, playing out.
I was speaking with HSBC, with Kenneth Chan, their head of North Asia Private Banking. They've tied their colours to the Chinese mast a long time ago. And when I saw her in November, she was talking about targeting the younger entrepreneurs in the Pearl River Delta, and also the links that these entrepreneurs have with the Middle East and Africa through what she called a wealth corridor.
Well, I mean, if your choices are England and Asia, are you going to choose England? It's a survival strategy, right? I mean, look, I think there's a lot of exciting areas in the world. Like I was in LATAM a couple months ago in Buenos Aires. I think a lot of LATAM looks really promising. There's a lot of great decentralized finance going on there. I think parts of Africa are interesting. Is HSBC going to go to LATAM, suddenly? I don't know, So for them, I think it's more, okay, well, where do we see relative growth and excitement? Where do we have an edge? It's definitely Hong Kong, China for them. There is a lot of competition, especially from Chinese banks. Like if we're looking at Hong Kong IPOs, it's actually CICC that's dominating that landscape, right? And so if you're picking up the new, minted rich who've just had IPOs of their businesses, and it's CICC running that book, it's probably CICC that might be able to channel it into something else, right?
I mean, we've got our Wealth Summit coming up in Singapore next week, which I'm going to be chairing, and one person who's attending that, Elizabeth Hart, who I interviewed, she's working with several Asian families, and she's talking about the structured products that they're asking her to form with the banks, hedging between the high oil price and the troubled markets. If you're representing a family in Vietnam or Korea or Thailand, how concerned would you be now about the impact of the oil price on your investments?
The obvious kind of corollary from that is that, you got to invest in green infrastructure. This is what China has been doing for decades. The main incentive is to bring in your supply chain so you're not so exposed to geopolitical risks like you see right now. And so everything that China has been betting on, and they own those supply chains, those are going to be the biggest market cap companies in China and globally going from here on out for the next 10 years, because that's probably the only reliable trend. These countries are, their economies are shutting down, right? Philippines is saying 4-day weeks. Maybe it'll go down to 3-day weeks. Maybe people have to work from home again, But until we have like a more reliable energy infrastructure, this is not going to work. The global conflict is actually benefiting China, not just in terms of demand for its green architecture, but also in terms of its visibility as, more of a peacekeeping presence in the world rather than, a chaos-driving one. You can see that Iran is, everyone thought China would be screwed, but actually the Chinese ships are still allowed to pass through. Why? Because they've managed to maintain good relationships with most countries, So it's the same thing in Africa. I mean, what was most striking to me about my most recent trip to Africa was that people would unprompted come up to me. I'm an American citizen. They would come up to me and they'd say, China, like, you're doing just such great things here. You built so many, this is amazing. Because in, the UK or America, there's a lot of racism that happens. The reputation that they're building just by being on the ground, building the countries, investing where people are just running away.
And I know, Alice, that you're a renowned opera singer in your spare time. If you were comparing the current macro situation to one of the well-known operatic works, would it be Farewell My Concubine, the famous Chinese film adaptation of 1993, where you've got different Chinese identities and an era of transition, or perhaps Giulio Cesare, the famous Handel opera depicting this time of vengeance, rivalry, assassinations across the Middle East?
I think as a singer, I focus on the craftsmanship of singing. And one thing I've been thinking about a lot is, like, say in Giulio Cesare, I did the role of Cleopatra last year, and it's just amazing how repetitive it is, because you sing literally the same line of libretto 16 times in a song. But you know what? That's what human life is. Life is really on loop. And you yourself as a human being, you have the same thought on loop over and over again. You keep thinking about the same things. That's what's true to the craftsmanship of it. And when I think about what's going on in the world too, it's like, hey, we thought the Ukraine war was going to be over in like a month or a day or a week. It's still going in the background. It's like a bad loop. And we might be in another bad loop with this Iranian war that we thought would be over in a month, right? And the people in charge, they're also on their bad loops, singing the same line over and over. I'm like, you know what? This is actually closest to what reality is and what we're witnessing, in live form today.
But thankfully, when you come into our studio, Alice, we're not getting the repetitive libretto from you. We're getting new ideas
hopefully.
Every time. So it's such a pleasure to have you here with us
Thank you so much for having me again.
Sadly, that's it for today, as the FT studio clock is ticking. But I look forward to speaking with you next week from our temporary home on the road in Singapore. Please do send in your questions and keep watching every episode of the PWM Tea Break.